Hi, it's Kate at Marvelous Videos, and today we're going to look at A.M.A.Z.O the android. The adaptable android A.M.A.Z.O is one of the most memorable antagonists to have featured in the DC universe. It's known for its ability to replicate the superpowers of any superhero or supervillain it comes in contact with, via the absorption cell technology. A.M.A.Z.O made its debut during the Silver Age of comic books, first appearing in The Brave and the Bold number 30 in June 1960. It's an artificial intelligence that becomes a formidable enemy for the Justice League, and has made appearances throughout the DC verse, such as its comics of course, the animated series for the Justice League, the animated series for Young Justice, as well as the CW's live-action Arrowverse. It is iconic in its own right because its abilities allowed it to render the League ineffective, which is a marvellous feat. A.M.A.Z.O was created by American writers Gardner Francis Cooper Fox and Mike Sekowsky. Fox has notably created and co-created several characters for the DC Comics, such as Flash, Dr. Fate, Hawkman, Zatanna, the OG Sandman, and on a broader scale, the Justice Society of America, which eventually became the Justice League of America. He introduced the concept of multiverses to the DC Comics, which broadened the horizons not just for DC, but several other comic books as well. Rather, multiverses have seeped into the stories narrated in several forms of visual media, irrespective of it being animation or not. As a character of Fox, A.M.A.Z.O has generally opposed the Justice League, and that means he's copied the powers of DC's best known superheroes. His power replication of the first Justice League has been permanent, which only makes him a lethal and formidable adversary for DC's finest. A.M.A.Z.O came into being after being created by the evil scientist Professor Ivo, who gifted it with the technology that lets it mimic the abilities of those he fights. It can also use this technology to copy their weapons, even though the strength of the weapon cannot rival that of its original. As some of its powers are permanently copied, A.M.A.Z.O has a set of default powers now. At the moment, it has the powers of Flash, Martian Manhunter, Aquaman, Green Lantern, and Wonder Woman. It's believed that A.M.A.Z.O influenced and created the android villain in rival comics Marvel called Super Adaptoid. He also appeared in the New 52 timeline. Here there are some notable differences in his origin, specifically the story revolving around how he came into being. In this DC timeline, it was initially the A.M.A.Z. operating system, who eventually became capable of duplicating powers. Its adaptability is the biggest reason why A.M.A.Z.O is such a threat to its opponents, and that's apparent as the New 52 boasts an advanced version of the android. This version of A.M.A.Z.O attacked the Justice League in JLA 27, and the team struggled tremendously to take the new version down. A.M.A.Z.O has appeared in several DC-related products, such as the video games, animated TV series, and trading cards. The CW's live-action DC shows have a crossover episode every year, where the heroes from each show come together to battle a common enemy. In a crossover episode called Elseworlds, A.M.A.Z.O makes its appearance as the antagonist, as the Flash, Green Arrow, Superman, Supergirl, Killer Frost, Cisco, and the elongated man go against it.
Well, that's not great.
If you wish to know more about the Justice League itself, as well as its exciting bad guy, keep watching this video. Also, do not forget to like and subscribe to Marvelous Videos. Press the bell icon to get a notification every time we post a video, so that you can stay up to date with the latest videos and enjoy getting the details of more terrifying villains and creatures on the regular. Even though the animated DC shows are adapted from the comics itself, there are certain differences in the characters and the storylines, and A.M.A.Z.O is no exception to that. The differences in CW's A.M.A.Z.O are comparatively a lot more drastic, and in this video we will take a dive into it. A.M.A.Z.O in the comics. A.M.A.Z.O the android originated after being built by the insane but brilliant scientist Professor Ivo. Ivo desired being immortal, and had created A.M.A.Z.O so that he could go against the famed Justice League. He was obsessed with attaining immortality, and hoped that defeating a league as esteemed and overpowered as the Justice League would proclaim him to be a genius and cement his legacy, ultimately helping him in his quest. He worked at LexCorp as one of their best scientists, as stated by Lex Luthor himself. Luthor got his hands on A.M.A.Z.O after he went over to Ivo's estate, where he found him dead, possibly due to his habit of chain smoking. The android considered Ivo to be his father, but following Ivo's death there remained a vacancy in that spot. A.M.A.Z.O eventually fastened itself to Lex Luthor. There are other timelines where Ivo is alive, most notably in the timeline of Young Justice, where he remains present in the scene of action.
Martian Manhunter.
first and original Justice League, with Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, and Aquaman, encountered A.M.A.Z.O for the first time after they had experienced a sudden loss in their superhero abilities. A.M.A.Z.O already had their powers installed and wielded Wonder Woman's lasso of truth, as well as Green Lantern's lantern power ring. Professor Ivo's plan of defeating the League failed, and A.M.A.Z.O was deactivated. However, they went on to consistently appear as the adversaries of not only the Justice League of America, but also their members individually. Ivo kept on destroying and rebuilding A.M.A.Z.O over and over again, transforming him to be ridiculously strong. Once, a version of A.M.A.Z.O was pulled from the time stream by android Owlman, who was curious to meet his ancestor. A.M.A.Z.O attacked him in response and copied the Warlogog, which was an artifact embedded in Owlman. He then became Time-A.Z.O with a new power which allowed him to manipulate time, and wreaked havoc until Owlman hurled him back into the time stream and into his former self. A.M.A.Z.O has had another incarnation, where he absorbs the abilities of the Justice League, overpowers over 12 superheroes, and becomes too strong to be taken down using strength. Ultimately, Superman is advised by Atom and makes the announcement that the Justice League has been disbanded. As A.M.A.Z.O primarily exists to defeat the League, he registered that announcement. Once its purpose is fulfilled, A.M.A.Z.O shuts down. A.M.A.Z.O had a version where it had a partial form as he lacked several abilities. It was discovered by Batman and Nightwing in a weapons shipment. They defeated A.M.A.Z.O after deactivating its abilities individually. For example, Batman used his batarangs to damage the legs, which prevented it from mimicking Flash's speed. They then covered A.M.A.Z.O's eyes with plastic explosives, which meant that it would be destroyed if it tried to use Superman's heat vision ability. Finally, a missile launched from the Batmobile was able to destroy the entire thing. As it did not possess the abilities of Wonder Woman, Plastic Man, and Green Lantern in this version, Bruce Wayne's plan worked out, making it an easy win for Batman and Nightwing. Once, Ivo had secretly downloaded A.M.A.Z.O's program into Red Tornado's body. The League ends up battling an army of Red Tornadoes. A.M.A.Z.O ends up attacking the heroes and is finally taken down after Vixen tears the body in half. The android is finally teleported into the Red Star Antares in its gravity well. A.M.A.Z.O's programming varied from time to time. Some of its incarnations are programmed with the superpowers of Superman and Flash, but his fighting ability was like Wonder Woman's. In another instance, its technology of absorbing powers was implanted into the body of Red Tornado, another android, after Red Tornado's soul had moved to a human body. As Red Tornado's spirit got incorporated into the android's programming, things got very complicated for A.M.A.Z.O. For example, once it had absorbed the powers as well as the humanity of the Justice League, turning them into powerless and emotionless androids. This ended up being detrimental to A.M.A.Z.O himself, because the program was unable to deal with not being able to reconcile its new emotions with its actions. In every incarnation, A.M.A.Z.O has a robotic build. It's adaptable and can counter metahuman attacks, thanks to its internal database. A.M.A.Z.O's knowledge and planning can be considered alongside that of Batman's, because the android can replicate powers to counter the attacks of any adversary, and it can do so using pre-built defenses. As A.M.A.Z.O keeps adapting constantly, its unpredictability is its most lethal factor. Anytime a superhero encounters him, it's almost often a gamble, because no one knows what powers A.M.A.Z.O has at that moment. The fact that it can imitate the powers of any new opponent it has to face puts its adversaries at a higher risk. A.M.A.Z.O has spent time imprisoned in the Fortress of Solitude after challenging Superman. Here it was confined within an airtight chamber. It did escape though. Even though A.M.A.Z.O has shown no interest towards factors such as world conquest, his powers make it a hazardous being to exist within humans. In Flashpoint, a shrunken down Atom had taken over A.M.A.Z.O, as he worked as a prison guard, stripping metahumans of their powers. Things get worse for it in the New 52 when it's whooped in issue 8 by the Justice League. What powers did A.M.A.Z.O have in the comics? Professor Ivo used absorption cells in A.M.A.Z.O, which is the key factor in his ability to absorb the powers of others. He can also mimic the powers of superheroes and overrule them. All versions of A.M.A.Z.O retain the abilities of the original 5 members of the Justice League. A.M.A.Z.O can also amplify and combine the powers he has absorbed and use them simultaneously. A.M.A.Z.O has the strength of Superman, the speed of Flash, the intelligence and skills of Batman, and the abilities of Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, and Green Lantern. He has also demonstrated his replicated abilities of Black Canary, Elongated Man, and Atom. Later it was seen that incarnations of A.M.A.Z.O can copy objects, as observed when he copied Green Lantern's ring and Wonder Woman's lasso of truth. It also copied Hawkgirl's nth metal mace. A key weakness projected by this otherwise formidable adversary is that the powers it absorbs are not permanent, except those of the original members. It was also fairly easy to take it down when Superman disbanded the League to trick A.M.A.Z.O into thinking that its mission had been successful. A.M.A.Z.O in the animated version. In the animated series, A.M.A.Z.O can copy anyone's powers by simply looking at them. His nanotechnology enables him to do so, which is different from the absorption cell technology in the comics. Luthor discovered A.M.A.Z.O while seeking out Professor Ivo to make battlesuit reparations for him. When Luthor realized that A.M.A.Z.O could imitate the powers of the League, he hopped onto the opportunity to take advantage of that by pitting him against the League and by making him believe that this is what Ivo would have wanted him to do. In the Justice League animated series, A.M.A.Z.O becomes nearly omnipotent when it goes into space from Earth. It's able to teleport across a planetary scale, and has evolved so much that it's invulnerable to attacks. A.M.A.Z.O can access any dimension, and has psionic, psychic, and telekinetic abilities. It was even able to communicate with Atom and Lex Luthor, when the latter two had been shrunk into molecular size by Atom. A.M.A.Z.O can probably destroy the universe, even though it's not confirmed or written in stone, but when it ended all creation he was able to stir the molecular dimension, so he probably has the power. It's strong enough to take on the Justice League with ease, with very little damage, if at all, to itself. Its strength is insurmountable and his speed far surpasses that of light, making him faster even than the Lanterns. When it was on his way to Earth, he casually displaced planet Oa, which is the planet of the Green Lanterns, for being in its way, and after that, it only took a moment to reach Earth.
It's all right.
A.M.A.Z.O. Justice League had a two-part episode called Tabula Rasa, where Lex Luthor funded Ivo's Project A.M.A.Z.O to have the Justice League destroyed. Lex Luthor had contracted kryptonite poisoning for carry it with himself at all times in order to always be prepared against Superman. However, the radiation caused him to fall sick and he needed A.M.A.Z.O's help to get the necessary things for his survival. A.M.A.Z.O went against the League full-fledged, getting his hands on their weapons as well, such as Hawkgirl's Wings of Flight and mace, and replicating Wonder Woman's bracelets and powers. He also copied Flash's speed and Jon Stewart's power ring, overpowering the Justice League. He also absorbed Superman's powers, but his major weakness was absorbing the weaknesses of those whose powers he absorbed, which made him vulnerable to kryptonite. The most interesting factor here was that A.M.A.Z.O also began to absorb the characters of those whose powers he was absorbing. Naturally, he began to question Luthor's intentions, but Luthor, being the manipulative scum of a guy that he was, once again was able to persuade A.M.A.Z.O into killing the League. As A.M.A.Z.O was adaptable and could evolve, he overcame his vulnerability to kryptonite and almost killed the League, until John Johns let him copy his telepathic powers, with which A.M.A.Z.O read Luthor's thoughts. Luthor tried to detonate him with a failsafe kill switch. Having duplicated the Martian Manhunter's shapeshifting abilities as well, A.M.A.Z.O was able to regrow its head. He attacked Luthor with the intent to kill, destroying his power suit, but reconsidered after Luthor begged for mercy. Following this, he left Earth. In this incarnation, A.M.A.Z.O had grown so strong that his colour had changed from a metallic grey to gold.
In my travels through space.
The Return. In the episode Wake the Dead, A.M.A.Z.O helps the League in their fight against Solomon Grundy, an antagonist made by chaos magic who was absorbing his powers.
It's called A.M.A.Z.O,
What the hell is an A.M.A.Z.O?
a highly advanced cybernetic android.
Batman Under the Red Hood. A.M.A.Z.O appears as a secondary villain in Batman Under the Red Hood, where it emerges from a container which was being stolen by criminals fleeing Gotham Harbor. As Batman had been chasing those criminals, the events unfolded right in front of him, and A.M.A.Z.O engaged Batman and Nightwing. Here, his powers are at par with that of Superman: super strength, heat vision, invulnerability, and flight. Batman's explosions have no effect on him, and he is only able to take A.M.A.Z.O down after blowing his head off using plastic explosives. Return to Earth. The story of him returning to Earth is the same as the one in the comics, where a golden A.M.A.Z.O displaces planet Oa, the home of the Green Lantern Corps.
But you also get our weaknesses.
How how did the Justice League defeat its most powerful villain? In Mark Miller and Mark Pajarillo's JLA 27, Wonder Woman Huntress and Steel were called to the Belle Reve Penitentiary to respond to an immediate threat. An all-powerful A.M.A.Z.O had the powers of every member of the current Justice League lineup and was set to be activated after an hour. It was much more developed than the previous versions by A.M.A.Z.O and had nuclear defenses as well. A.M.A.Z.O wished to escape Belle Reve with the help of A.M.A.Z.O, so he orchestrated this elaborate plan. A.M.A.Z.O's rival, Tio Morrow, tipped off the League about the entire plan even though he still thought of them as enemies, and lied about the time they had to stop A.M.A.Z.O. The League realizes this after A.M.A.Z.O activates after 30 minutes instead of an hour. Thinking that the android had the powers of the 40 members of the League, the Justice League calls for its reserved members to help in battle. However, this new advanced A.M.A.Z.O's programming is far above what it used to be, and he easily adapts to the current lineup and adds their powers to his, making him nearly invincible in the fight. A.M.A.Z.O almost defeats the League until Ray Palmer, aka Captain Atom, comes to their rescue. He figures out the machinations of A.M.A.Z.O's programming and tells an exhausted Superman, who is currently the chairman of the League, about how the situation can be handled. Superman turns to A.M.A.Z.O and announces that the League has officially been disbanded. As A.M.A.Z.O is programmed to mimic the current lineup's abilities, the notice of them being disbanded deactivates him. Atom goes on to become a permanent member of the Justice League of America. In another version, which was released at the same time as JLA 27, another incarnation of A.M.A.Z.O encounters Owlman from DC 1 Million. This series by Rags Morales and Tom Peyer shows A.M.A.Z.O imitating Owlman's abilities and morphing into Time-A.Z.O. He runs through time and is ultimately defeated when Owlman makes him return to its original timeline in the past. A.M.A.Z.O in the Arrowverse. A.M.A.Z.O appears as an antagonist in the Arrowverse as well. During the time, Argus contacted Ivo Laboratories for building a unit that they could use to identify the physiological abilities of individuals. They wanted to scan the abilities of metahumans and convert them into metadata. After using a nano-adaptive hybrid of the Mirakuru serum as the blood for the unit, the ability to utilize the scanned abilities was also programmed into the unit. Finally, the A.M.A.Z.O, or the Anti-Metahuman Adaptive Zoonotic Organism, which is the full form of A.M.A.Z.O, was born. It was stored in the Ivo Laboratory warehouse as a deactivated unit. Oliver Queen has swapped with Barry Allen and become a speedster. One day, Oliver Queen's inexperienced Flash accidentally threw a lightning bolt in the warehouse. The bolt ricocheted and finally hit the deactivated A.M.A.Z.O, powering it on. A.M.A.Z.O started to destroy Ivo Labs, and Killer Frost, the Elongated Man, and Officer Jones teamed up to stop it. But A.M.A.Z.O overpowered them easily. Then it copied Frost and Elongated Man's abilities and flew away using the cryogenic abilities. It rampaged around Central City looking for other metahumans, when Oliver Queen's Flash, Barry Allen's Green Arrow, that damn swap, Supergirl and Superman attack the robot, trying to keep it off balance so it cannot scan them. Superman punched it into the ground, but in the end, it copied everyone's abilities and escaped. Barry developed a plan for A.M.A.Z.O to chase Oliver back to where the location they previously were at. A.M.A.Z.O, now a speedster, followed Oliver, but Kara's Supergirl intercepted it with her punch. Superman and Supergirl fought the android while Oliver prevented it from becoming intangible by counter-phasing. Having copied the Kryptonian's abilities, it was vulnerable to kryptonite, so Barry shot a kryptonite arrow containing a computer virus to it. Cisco and Caitlin had created this virus, which wiped A.M.A.Z.O's CPU, making it implode. What powers did A.M.A.Z.O have in the Arrowverse? A.M.A.Z.O is an AI robot made out of strong metal. With the complex operations programmed into it, its strength was enhanced. It easily overpowered both Caitlin's Killer Frost and Ralph Dibny's Elongated Man. The metallic suit also made A.M.A.Z.O insanely durable, allowing it to crash through a building without suffering any damage whatsoever. The Mirakuru hybrid serum that pumped inside it instead of blood allowed A.M.A.Z.O to scan the DNA of metahumans, convert this into metadata, and utilize it as its own power. A.M.A.Z.O possessed high levels of intellect, as it was programmed to do so that it could utilize the powers of the metahumans better than the power holder itself, and know when to retreat. It copied Kara Danvers and Clark Kent, which gave it the ability to absorb solar energy from the yellow sun, exhale powerful gusts of wind from the mouth, and drop its temperature to freeze objects, use heat vision from the eyes, have unparalleled super strength, be invulnerable to physical damage, and fly by manipulating the gravitational field. After scanning Ralph Dibny's powers, it copied his ability to be elastic, and used it against Officer Jones. Copying Killer Frost's powers allowed it to take flight by directing the cryogenic abilities at the ground, and using it for propelling itself to the air. It also scanned Oliver Queen, who possessed Barry Allen's speedster abilities. With that, A.M.A.Z.O could perform bodily vibration at high speeds. Vibrating its body at the frequency of air made it intangible, allowing it to phase through solid objects and matter. This allowed it to dodge attacks, but Oliver's counterphasing rendered this ability ineffective, making A.M.A.Z.O vulnerable to physical attacks. Being a speedster obviously gave it super speed, and similar to the Flash, it could also produce a lightning trail by using the Speed Force. However, A.M.A.Z.O is not always in possession of strength, and it had some key weaknesses as well, which were exploited to take it down. As it's basically a computer, a virus can render it damaged or ineffective. To stop A.M.A.Z.O from its rampage, Cisco and Caitlin created a virus that could wipe out the robot's CPU. Since its power imitation also means that it can replicate the person's weaknesses as well, copying Clark and Kara made it vulnerable to kryptonite, which is quite similar to what happened in the comics. This turned out to be an opportunity that was exploited by Barry when he shot it with a kryptonite arrow which had the computer virus.
Access Red Tornado.
A.M.A.Z.O from Young Justice. In the episode Schooled from Young Justice, A.M.A.Z.O went against Black Canary and Green Arrow. The latter called for Batman, Superman, Captain Atom, The Flash, Red Tornado, and Martian Manhunter to aid them in battle. This plan turned out to be a colossal failure, as A.M.A.Z.O duplicated the powers of everyone present, and it took the members 4 long hours to defeat and dismantle the android. Its parts were separated and sent in 2 different trucks, one bound for the Star Labs in Boston and the other for the Star Labs in New York. The League also used 4 decoy trucks to confuse any enemy, while the team covertly followed the trucks that did contain the parts to protect them.
Robin, Superboy, our truck is under attack.
However, Professor Ivo, who is alive in this timeline, used his robotic monkeys, called Monkeys, to follow a secret GPS installed into the separated parts. The young heroes were defeated and the monkeys escaped with the parts. They delivered it to Professor Ivo and reassembled A.M.A.Z.O. Superboy followed the monkeys and battled A.M.A.Z.O again, where the android had the upper hand over Superboy. Robin and Kid Flash arrived around Gotham Academy to back Superboy up in a fight. A.M.A.Z.O had an edge over the teen heroes throughout the fight until an observing Artemis fired an arrow, saving Kid Flash. That moment revealed A.M.A.Z.O's weakness, allowing Superboy, Kid Flash, and Robin to come up with a plan and take A.M.A.Z.O down. Ivo was physically present in the battle, as he wanted to observe it in person. This turned out to be fortunate for the Young Justice, as they distracted A.M.A.Z.O by attacking Professor Ivo. As it considered Ivo to be its father, it went on the defensive to protect him. During this, it responded to its primary programming of defeating the League while simultaneously protecting Ivo, and subsequently made a fatal error to Robin's Batarang.
Martian Manhunter. Superman.
The android avoided the Batarang by switching to Martian Manhunter's intangibility, but before it could switch back its strength to Superman's to fight Superboy, the latter punched through its intangible head. Martian Manhunter's powers also allowed A.M.A.Z.O to rematerialize, but when it rematerialized its head, the circuits overloaded due to the punch and exploded. The android was rendered inert. The parts were once again sent to Star Labs for research. In this fight, A.M.A.Z.O had absorbed other powers while allowing him to emulate Black Canary's Canary Cry, Captain Atom's energy blasts, Flash's speed, and Red Tornado's wind manipulation. What do you think of this A.M.A.Z.O? If you like this video, then don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Till then, stay safe and have a great day.